How you doing?
Hey, how are you, Khaled?
Good. Good to finally meet you.
Good to meet you too. Can you see me okay? I can't really tell from the cropping.
I,
I guess you can.
I can see you perfectly, and you sound great. So we're ready to go. So lots to talk about.
A
Um,
lot. A lot has happened over the past 72 hours.
yeah, definitely an understatement. So I gotta ask, what are your thoughts on the announcement of Doug Ford and his team on Friday?
Well, building up to the announcement on Friday, I think everybody knows that the mayor and council and all of Brampton, we have been, very concerned about the essential workers in Brampton. Those who are having no choice but to actually go to work, take transit, drive, go to work, and risk exposing themselves. And what we have been calling for are paid sick days and more support for our essential workers, and making sure we prioritize our hot spots, getting our essential workers vaccinated, because that is really the root cause here in the number of cases in Brampton. What we got instead on Friday was the closure of playgrounds and police checks. And so I think that many of us were concerned. I think that there were perhaps some things that were helpful to what medical experts had been asking for. But certainly in hotspots, whether that's Brampton, Scarborough, Etobicoke, Peel, Mississauga, we didn't get what we needed to get in order to deal with the root causes. I spoke to a doctor friend of mine afterwards who said to
Yeah,
me that the ICUs are full of essential workers. And the announcement on Friday, and even the reversal of the announcement on Saturday, did nothing to actually address and support those people who keep coming into the ICUs.
true. Yeah, there's not many variants from Manitoba coming in, so I'm kind of shocked about the whole the border closing, which is kind of.
Yeah.
But let,
Yeah.
let me ask you this, and I've asked this to quite a few politicians. Sick pay. Okay, it's been a hot topic. It's all over the news. Everybody brings it up. What does that actually mean? Like, I know it's obviously sick pay for people that are sick, and let's just say if somebody had COVID-19 at Amazon, they would go home, and would they get full pay right away? Like, I just don't understand the concept of sick pay. I know it's, do you know how it
Yeah.
works?
Yeah, I mean, I have a general sense of how it works. I know that some of the large warehouses and manufacturing businesses have and offer paid sick days to their employees. I don't know exactly the details of the extent of their benefit plan when it comes to paid sick days. Normally, what would happen is if you were sick one day, or you feared that perhaps you had symptoms of COVID-19, you would take a paid sick day, ask your supervisor
Yep.
that you're sick, and then you would not be docked off of your biweekly paycheck that you would receive. In some cases, in Brampton in particular, where we have some small or medium-sized manufacturing or food manufacturing plants in particular, because of COVID, they've also been hit very hard, these businesses. And so the extent of their benefits plans aren't the same as a huge corporation like Amazon,
Yeah.
for example. And so they don't necessarily offer the same type of paid sick days as those companies. And so what would happen is that if they've already maxed out on whatever benefits that they have, and they get COVID and they have no more paid sick days left, they end up having to choose between putting food on the table or paying the rent and going to work, or exposing themselves to getting sick or getting other people sick as well. So I would imagine that once you've reached a certain threshold of paid sick day benefits, then and you get sick, you have no more access to that benefit anymore.
I guess I guess at what point does the government, let's just say the Ford government says, hey, you know what, everybody gets sick pay, right? So does one have to apply for it? And
Mm-hmm.
then, or does it go through the company? I guess that's where people are asking me, and I don't know the answer. So
Yeah, I think the federal government and their budget is coming today,
yes,
so
yeah,
the
we'll talk
whole
about.
my gosh, you're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about over the next little while. But What we are hearing this morning when I was listening to some sneak previews of what the budget might entail, we're hearing that maybe the federal government might be stepping in to help out Ontario when it comes to paid sick days. Who knows? I'm hoping that might be the case. But certainly there are other programs that governments, listen, the government, they're smart people. They have WSIB, they have other benefits, they have EI, they have other channels that they can go through in order to address this particular issue.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the budget. You brought it up. What do you hope that? Well, I guess what is Brampton looking for within the federal budget?
Yeah, I think there are a number of different things. Obviously, the Safe Restart Agreement. So we've got phase 1 and phase 2. The Safe Restart Agreement is the funding that's helped municipalities with respect to some of the revenue losses and the operating costs and shortfalls that we aren't able to actually reach or actually get, revenue for. So municipalities are not allowed to be in deficit. We have to have balanced budgets. It's illegal for us to be deficit. So that money, especially from transit losses or revenue that would have been generated through other things such as recreation programs, etc. That's the type of operating funding that we need. And at the board table at FCM, we've been advocating for that in particular at FCM. And I think one of the other pieces is, sometimes when these funding agreements come from the federal government, it gets kind of delayed at the provincial level before it gets to the municipal level. So what we're looking for is more direct support. I think the doubling of the gas tax, again, is the other piece that we need certainly use funding for as well. And ultimately, I think the budget will focus on COVID-19 and how the federal government is going to help, particularly Ontario, and even more particularly those hot spots, get through the COVID-19 pandemic. And finally, I'll say that in terms of economic recovery, our small businesses in particular have suffered so much. And if anything, the feds need to step up, hopefully today, to help them out.
True. So let's talk. Sorry, everybody that's joining us right now. This is Rowena Santos, Brampton City Councilor, on with me for the first time ever, which is great. So let's talk about non-COVID stuff. Okay. So there are issues in Brampton that don't, they're not COVID. So what are the biggest non-COVID issues in Brampton?
Right now, what are the biggest COVID-19, or what are the biggest issues that are not COVID-19 related? Yeah. My goodness, you're putting me on the spot here.
Sorry, I'm sure there's there's obviously there's violence, there's the guns and everything like that. But I mean, there's tons going on everywhere, right? Except the news cycle is all COVID, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or especially over the past 72 hours. I mean, I think what I will say is what a lot of people don't really like to talk about. There are some incredibly good news that's coming out of Brampton that's getting crowded out because of this COVID stuff. Number one, we are going to be launching the e-bus, the electric bus, and the electric bus service here in Brampton. And I believe the announcement and the launch is going to be on Friday. So that is super exciting, watching Brampton become one of the first municipalities to have electric buses hitting the roads. The other good news stuff that we aren't necessarily talking about all the time is all of the term of council priorities and the work that we are doing as a city despite the COVID-19 pandemic. Financially, with the support from the federal and provincial government, with Safe Restart funding, we're doing pretty well. And we found incredible efficiencies and savings within our own budgets and administrations, so that we are still hoping, for us to get to zero or close to zero property taxes in our budget this coming next year. The other piece, of course, is on the healthcare piece, right? So we have our hospital that was announced recently. Well, a little bit, I guess, better late than never, right?
Sure.
Better late than never. So that stuff is happening as well. And we're doing a lot of work on community safety. There's tremendous work that we're doing on the community safety file as well.
So let's talk about now that time has passed a little bit with the announcement of the renovation or the addition or the new hospital, whichever way you look at it. What is with
What is the second phase hospital?
Yeah, is it a renovation? Is it an addition? Is it a new hospital? You know, there's been so much, like, you know, now that a couple of weeks has passed, have you guys kind of settled on what it is? Yeah.
Yeah, I think what it is the second phase of the Peel Memorial Hospital to go from an urgent care center to a full service hospital, including a 24/7 emergency room with 200 and plus something beds. Originally, the Liberals had it at just about 100 beds, 80 to 100 beds, and this particular government has topped it up. And so I know that they are working closely with William Osler. I've seen plans, you know, going far back as I would say sometime last year before COVID hit, as to what some of those plans may look like. I think, Khaled, some of the frustration in terms of whether it's a renovation or whether or not it's just an expansion or whether or not it's a full-scale hospital is that we in Brampton, we are so frustrated with sometimes just getting breadcrumbs all the time and not getting what we fully deserve. And what we fully deserve is that second hospital. What we fully deserve as a growing community with serious healthcare needs is another third hospital. What we fully deserve in Brampton is our own university. There are so many things, I think, as a community that is 73% visible minorities, people who work very hard, and one of the most youngest populations in the country. We deserve a lot more than what we have been getting in the past.
True. Agreed. And I saw you on TV a few weeks ago, and you were talking about a very important topic, structural racism, right? Explain that to me. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so structural racism is when you're put into a system or there are a number of institutions that because of your demographics, because of your race, you don't get the same access to services and support that other communities would probably get. I'll give you an example right now. During COVID-19, 80% of the cases across the province are coming from 20% of the communities in the province. And we are one of that 20%. It's that typical 80-20 rule. And at the end of the day, you know, anecdotally, I will say that we are 73% visible minorities. Many of the people in our city work as essential workers, and they're not getting the support that they get. But when you look at the vaccination distribution, vaccination supply, you look at access to healthcare, you look at access to post-secondary institutions, you know, Brampton, with 73% visible minorities, doesn't have the same as perhaps what other municipalities have, like Kingston and others. Now, that's not to say that Kingston doesn't deserve it, but that is to point something out. Why is it that our residents in Brampton, we have to have gridlock situations in our hospitals all the time? Why is it that we are the only large municipality in the entire country that does not have its own full university? All of our young people go elsewhere to school. Why is that? Why is it that when it comes to vaccination rollout, we have to yell and scream and watch people die in our community before we get equitable access to vaccinations? So, you know, I know that there's a lot of race-based data that's being collected on a number of different things. But from my perspective as a woman of color, and a lot of people don't want to say it, there's some serious structural racism that exists. And that's not to say that it's the fault of this government or the previous government. I think it's just something that has been built over the system year after year, election after election, that nobody really pays attention to or wants to even talk about.
So are you saying maybe that the decisions were made from the province could have been based on racial profiling, and that's why kind of like Brampton got the, you know, the kind of bad end of the stick? Because I do see, we do get information a lot, right? And we get information about the drugstores, you know, that will be having vaccinations. the funny thing, well, it's not the funny thing. It's kind of a bad thing, is that I see that Brampton still gets the lowest amount.
Yeah.
Right? I don't understand why. You know, Mississauga has more than Brampton. Halton has more than Brampton.
Yeah.
You know. So, anyways, I mean, so are you saying that, you know, there is kind of a systemic kind of racism within kind of the provincial government?
I wouldn't. I mean, I think that there's a systemic structural racism that exists within the system itself. You know, I don't think that we can pinpoint it to any particular government during a particular term. It's something that unfortunately has been building up, you know, even before the Ford government. You know, we've been neglected for decades in Brampton. And you know, there was a doctor on CBC, I think it was yesterday, and she did point out that, you know, the people who are coming in to emergency rooms with COVID-19 are visible minorities. These are the ones who are most vulnerable to the virus. And why is that? Why is that when you look at the charts and the data, and I sent, you and I were chit-chatting back and forth when all of that stuff was going on, why is it that I think the statistic was 80% or something of the population in Kingston was vaccinated, and Brampton's statistic, or like the higher risk areas, were significantly lower in terms of vaccination, and those were the ones who were the hot spots. And so I think, you know, can we say, are people going to have the courage to say that there's structural and systemic racism that exists deeply within our healthcare system? You know, I'll say it because I'm a woman of color and I see it in my community. And perhaps that's the conversation that we need to really have an honest, uncomfortable conversation about. And again, it's not the fault of any one term of government. It is, you know, somewhat of the fault of lack of representation at the leadership tables, you know, for sure.
Sure. So let me talk to Rowena. You are a first-time counselor, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't happen very often, because every counselor I talk to has been around for like 1,000 years. Okay, like how long have you been elected for? Oh, since the 80s. So I gotta ask, like, how has it been so far as a counselor?
Yeah, it's been a privilege and a blessing, and it's very humbling at the same time. You know, before getting elected myself, I spent about 12 to 13 years working at Queen's Park, and working in politics, and being very engaged and involved in organizing campaigns and helping to get other people elected. And so now working at the municipal level as a representative myself, it's a perspective that I bring that previous experience with, because I worked from the grassroots. For me, engaging the community and being a grassroots organizer, and making sure that we create more space for people and voices to be heard at the table, that is the way that we change the culture of politics. And I hold, from my perspective, this role as a deep responsibility, not just to make decisions today for the future of our city, but also to pave a path for all of those young people who are probably, you know, watching your show regularly. All of those young people, all of those young BIPOC leaders who are aspiring to sit at that table. That is what is different for me versus being an organizer in the past.
Awesome. And I'm going to put you on the spot. Political aspiration. What is it?
Oh, get reelected next term.
Good answer.
We go term by term there, Khaled. Yeah. Honestly, I think, but again, going back to the responsibility and the role, you know, obviously with that comes people who are pushing and wanting you to do more. And I want to do more. And as long as it's about doing it for the community. So wherever I go, wherever I am, as long as it's the community that wants me to be there, I will be there. Awesome.
Rowena, is there anything else you want to bring up, talk about, chat about?
Yeah.
I was going to say, what takeout spot are you getting this week?
You know what, Khaled? It's part of the reason why I go on the Peloton every single day. Is because I keep supporting local. And so what takeout is it going to be this week? I think I'm probably up for Fanzarelli's is my guess this week.
Okay. Good.
I haven't
That's
gone
good.
to Fanzarelli's for a while, so I'll do a Fanzarelli's.
Nice. Okay. Rowena Santos, thank you so much. Anytime you want to come on the show, just let me know.
I would love to. And you know what? I would love to at some point talk about active transportation and climate change and changing the car driving culture in the city of Brampton. That's one of my missions. And I'm happy to bring a mount. I bought a mount for my bike to put my phone on, and I can take you all for a ride.
Okay, that sounds, while you're talking to me. All right. Awesome. Cool. Okay, Rowena, thank you so much for being on the show. I don't know how long I was supposed to have you for, but I had you for about 20 minutes. All right.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.